Hello, everybody. Thank you today for joining us on Robbie South Texas How Money Works, the podcast where we teach you how money works so that you can stop being a sucker. Well, as you know, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So every episode this month is going to be dedicated to awareness in that area and how it relates to finances. We're going to have multiple guests on the show this month, and today is no different. Today we have a very special guest who is going to have some great information for us, going to tell her story, answer some questions for us, and just really help us understand what we need to be looking for and prepare to get out of a bad situation if we're in one. So with that being said, we're going to introduce Miss Andrea Jenkins. And if you would just kind of give us a little bit of background about your story, what you've been through, and all that real quick. Thank you for being with us.
Hello, Rob. Thank you so much for inviting me. You see, I have a smile on my face here. And, even though it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, this is something to be proud to be a part of, because reaching out to individuals that have been abused in domestic violence, financial abuse, physical, mental, emotional, but to be a source for individuals to come to. And so thank you for allowing me to use my voice today. So a little bit about my story. Hello, everyone. As Rob mentioned, I am Andrea D. Jenkins, and I was a victim of domestic violence. But you couldn't tell me that I was a victim of domestic violence at the time, initially, because I would fight back. You hit me, I hit you back. But then over time, it really became a bit more aggressive. And those hits became, more than just hits. They became punches. Then it became, verbal, emotional, mental. And although I like to, at the time, pride myself, hey, I'm a tough woman and, I'm not being abused. But over time, when you're constantly being beat up, and like I said, that physical, mental, emotional, it begins to take a toll on you. And that's what was happening to me. It took a toll on me. And then the Andrea Jenkins that everybody knew began to change. I began to shift. My spirit was dampened. So there was a lot of changes in who I really was. I began to hide even more. I did not want the bruises to be seen. So not only was I bruised on the outside, I was bruised on the inside.
Oh, yeah.
So there were several instances, and I'll speak of one. There was a time when I came home in the evening and I flipped the light on. So I could, I'm coming in, I want to get myself together. I'm going to go shower, get ready for bed, flip the light on. And the person that I was married to at the time, he took the light bulb out and he threw it out the front door. So, just things like that. He had to be in control of everything, any and everything that was related to me. He had to be in control. And so over time, it became, even more. So when I'm in public and I'm in public with him, then of course I'm the opposite sex. I was really afraid to just even say hello to, because then I'm accused of flirting. And I've always been a sociable person, a very outgoing person. And so then that changed. Then I started, let me keep my mouth closed because I don't want to fight anymore. I'm tired of fighting. There was another instance where I went to, I want to grab all of my clothes, grab all of my belongings. Let me just leave. Right. And if you've been in a situation like that or experienced abuse, many of us have made the decision or made the choice to, I'm going to leave. I'm leaving. I'm packing my bag. I'm leaving. We may have left, but then we've gone back.
Yes.
So I made that decision that evening to leave. I'm going to pack my bag. And then I was threatened. If I touched any item, whether it be clothing, whether it be shoes. If I put my hands on anything, then I was going to suffer the consequences.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I put it to the test. I am determined to leave this environment this evening. And so I went to gather my belongings, and then he spit in my face.
Oh, wow.
And then I was punched, in the head. So, when you are, and I'm getting a little bit emotional here. I have been divorced over 20 some years now, but every time I talk about it and share my story, it's real.
Yes.
And it hurts.
Well, and then that's something that stays with you a lifetime, whether you're out of the situation or not. You still have those memories and those emotions deep inside of you. Yes, you can receive counseling and guidance to help learn how to deal with it, and that's a great thing. But it's always there, and then
Right.
it's like it's very difficult. I've never uh, personally had some of the experiences that you've had, but being in public safety, the first part, my first career as a firefighter and an EMT, as you spoke, and I've seen firsthand where people would leave situations or be advised by us, law enforcement, whoever, to leave those situations just to come right back to it. And
Right.
to kind of build on what you said, the mental abuse, it's not only about physical. So many people think, well, he's not hitting on me, or she's not hitting on me, or this or that, and that's not that I'm not being abused. Well, no, that's not necessarily the case. It can be mental, it can be verbal, like you said there. That's another way of just tearing you down. And as you said, control. That is what
Absolutely.
the other individual wants. And
Right.
while the majority of this does happen to females, or you hear about it in the female area the most, I want to bring awareness to some of the male side as well, because it does happen both ways. And you
Absolutely.
don't hear about that as much for whatever
Right.
reasons, but it
And
can go both ways.
absolutely. And Rob, like you said, whether it's male or female, abuse is abuse. Domestic
Yes.
violence is domestic violence, and it's across the board. It affects so many, whether you are male or female. If you're male, and say maybe you have not been abused, but then you may have family members, that have been abused.
Yes.
But then the domestic violence, it's not just the physical, emotional, and the verbal, but financial abuse, and a
Exactly.
lot of people do not tend to realize that there is a thing. Financial abuse is a thing. And it
Absolutely.
all goes back into that control.
Well, sure. The individual feels like they can control you and manipulate you into doing what they want to do by limiting your actions in whatever case that may be. Uh,
Right.
I can speak firsthand from experience to where I know a primary breadwinner was working 2 full-time jobs, spending 48 hours at least away from the family. That paycheck from both jobs went into one bank account where that individual had no access to the money. The other spouse would have control over where that money spent, what bills were paid, and then would give the other spouse, the primary breadwinner, an allowance, if you will, $100 a week for groceries and gas. Now, how much? $200 every 2 weeks? That's not a lot of money, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
that right there is about control, like you were saying, and it's entangled in so many different ways. Let's say somebody's in a situation and they are unaware of what's going on, and let's say a good friend or a family member comes to them and says, "Hey, something's just not right with you. I tell you're not the old you." What are some of the red flags that maybe the person in the situation should take a deep look at and realize, okay, there is something going on here. Maybe I do need to make a change.
Absolutely. And with you saying that, Rob, I remember my mom, she told me, I want my daughter back. So my family saw so many changes in me that they were not used to. And, over time, and they didn't like it. But I would cover it up, cover it up. Oh no, I'm fine. Oh, we're just busy. Oh, so much is going on. But see, my family, they saw things that I was dismissing.
Right.
And so we have to be aware, be conscious of those signs. And, and I tell any woman, any man, anyone that's getting involved in a relationship, pay attention and be aware of those controlling signs. You don't need your family. Oh, you have me. I love you. In the beginning, in my case, he loved to cook. He loved to, shower me with, all these, different things. And initially I thought that was okay. That was not that I wasn't used to being showered. I mean, my dad showered me with so much.
Right.
But certain conversations, certain words that he would use, the signs were there, but I dismissed them initially. So some of the things that, we really need to be concerned with is that control. How much money did you spend? Why are you spending? I need to know every dollar, tracking your whereabouts. There's one thing to be concerned and care about where your significant other is, but then it's another thing I need to know down to the mileage. How long is it going to take you to get from point A to point B? Did you make a detour? Who did you talk to? Those are some signs of being controlling. When it's time to go to work, I had a job and I was the breadwinner in my family. And at the time I worked for information services. And I had to travel out of town to another hospital with a programmer to work on an operating system at this particular hospital in another city. Well, the person that I was married to continuously called. Now, how he got the hospital, where I was going to be, I don't know, because I didn't share. I got to a point where I stopped sharing certain things with him.
Right.
Well, he found out where I was. He called that hospital, I don't know how many times.
Wow.
Once I got to that hospital, the programmer and we got there. The staff greeted us, but they had no idea what was going on, but was sharing with me, oh, your husband was so kind. He's been so concerned about you. He's been calling and wanting to make sure you arrived safely. But it was that control.
Yes.
Not only that, but then he turned around and called the programmer's wife.
Oh, wow.
So there, you just have to really be, again, aware, listen.
Yeah.
Listen to pay attention to the conversation before you get married.
Right. And in today's times, it's so much easier to track people. And that can be so concerning because they can play off of that. Oh, well, I just want to make sure you're getting there safely. You have all these different apps nowadays. Well, not only apps, there's just multiple different ways you can track people nowadays.
Right.
And while on one hand it's good, on the other hand, it can lead to bigger problems with the controlling and, manipulating and
that's where that balance has to come into play. Right.
Exactly.
And that's where individuals, we have to really be, alert to the conversation that is being had.
Absolutely.
From the very beginning. And then there has to be boundaries that have to be established. And you have to develop what you will and will not accept or tolerate.
Yes. And one thing that I like to add to that is do not close off family and friends.
Yes.
Because they might see something, like you said, you didn't realize you were changing in a way that they would recognize it, but they may. So if you're still involved with them, they might can open your eyes up to something and listen to what they have to say. Have an open conversation with them. Don't just, like you said, oh, I'm fine, we're just busy, we're tired. They're trying to tell you something that's important to them that they see. And,
And
I've seen people
Rob,
do it.
it's embarrassment too.
It is.
Because
You're right.
there were things that, I got to a point where I recognized I am in a volatile situation here, very toxic.
Yes.
And one of us is not going to survive.
And
So there's going to have to be some changes. But it just took a while for me to make that exit.
Yeah.
But for me, at the time I was experiencing it, I was so ashamed. I was extremely embarrassed to, number one, allow my friends or my family to see me in the condition that I was in. The bruises, of course I wanted to hide them, cover them up.
Right.
I was embarrassed. I was ashamed that I allowed myself to get to that point.
And I think that's how the majority of people in those situations feel.
Right.
So once they recognize there's the embarrassment, which is a sign, hey, there's a problem here that we need to look into. You're getting messages from friends, family, hey, something's just not right. Once you see those signs and you're getting that message clear and you want to make a change, we want to bring awareness to the financial abuse as well. So what are some of the financial importance, like having an education that can help people get out of these bad situations?
Number one, I want to say, be open to the financial education, because so many just turn off the financial piece because they don't understand it. They were not taught in schools. So there's a lack of education around the money. And so let's leave it in the significant other. Let's leave it in their hands. They're already controlling everything. Well, stand up, take a stand to begin to learn how money works.
Yes.
Open up a book, of course, we have the How Money Works book. Take the time to have the conversation, to be educated on the money. It's important to have a plan, develop a plan. It's not easy to do that on your own.
No,
but when you reach out and have the conversation, you may be afraid to have that, conversation within your house, on your phone, because your abuser is there. So you have to be very, very careful with that. But there's so many resources that are available. And I encourage every man or woman, and woman, utilize the resources that are available to you. Be open-minded to gain the education. See, one of the things with me at the time, like I said, I was the breadwinner, in the household. Having that complete knowledge of how money works, I didn't have it. I wasn't taught in school. I didn't know. I just knew, let me go to work, let me make some money.
Yeah.
But again, I was living paycheck to paycheck.
As most people are.
As most people are. So it was challenging for me. I did not want to leave. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't leave. I didn't want to leave. So it's like, what do I do here? But then there was a child in the household, as well. Right. So I'm still struggling with, okay, I've got to pay bills. I'm not fully educated. Now I'm in a panic mode. I need an out. And so what I did one evening was I did leave. I packed up my bag when he was not there. And I put as many pieces of clothing in my vehicle as I possibly could. And I went to a friend's house. Well, when I got to her house, she was afraid. And what I decided to do was, let me go ahead and leave, because I don't want her to feel uncomfortable. I don't know what he is going to do, what he's capable of doing. So let me remove myself from this situation. So I went to a hotel. Well, Rob, I didn't have any money. I could not remember the PIN code for, my card, my ATM card. I've got all this anxiety. I'm afraid. I just need some place to stay. I don't want to involve my family. Right. But if I had the education, if I really understood how to allow money to work for me, then I would have easily been able to put myself in a hotel or someplace that I felt safe, because I would have been able to put my hands on the money.
Right.
I would have had some kind of cash on me, because we don't always remember right off, what's my PIN number? What is this? But we got to have a plan.
Exactly.
And so, go ahead.
Go ahead. I think exactly what you're saying is exactly how so many people feel in that exact situation. They want to leave, but they're so stressed and frustrated. They don't know whether to go left, right, or straight or back up. They have no clue. They don't have a
Right.
plan. In the stress, they don't remember their PIN numbers. So it's just, you're going uphill but not getting any traction. So,
Right.
that is huge in awareness. And that's why I know it's challenging, I know it's hard, but I think having those conversations can be important, as difficult as they can be. Whether it's texting a friend, if you can text, sometimes the other spouse will check your text messages. So,
Yeah.
find a way that works for you to talk to somebody, to get awareness, to find resources, whatever that resource may be. Because
Right. Right.
I think there's resources in every community to help people with this,
Absolutely.
regardless of what community you're in, whether you're in, a big city like Atlanta, Macon, or whether you're in a small community like Temple, Georgia, Rome, trying, some of the smaller areas, there's still resources available.
And knowing and understanding you're not alone.
Exactly.
You are not the only one on the face of the earth that's been abused. So recognize that. Accept the fact that you are in an abusive situation.
Yes.
Accept the fact that you've got to stop being silent about it and search out for, the help, the guidance, because it's there.
Yes.
There's so many that have already experienced it. And, it's important to be that voice, develop that plan. Start now. Start right now. So for anyone that is watching or listening to this, and you've tried over and over again to walk out, but then you came back, you left, and then you came back. I did the same thing. But you have to want to leave. You have to want it for yourself. And so there's so many around us that may want it for us. But if you don't truly want it for yourself and willing to take that step, then it's not going to happen.
And I think that first step is the hardest.
It is.
You got to come up with that plan, whatever that plan may be. Whether it be, hiding some money, how do you have to get money so that you can get out of that situation? There's going to be ways to do that.
Right.
Maybe reach out to resources, talk to family. Do you have any other suggestions along that line that kind of give some people ideas on how to plan to get out?
Absolutely. And so, we have the national hotline, the domestic violence. Pay attention to those resources. Don't just sit in your house and, in your spouse is there and you're watching, okay, this is what I'm going to do. That can be very dangerous.
Absolutely.
Very dangerous. But be aware of those resources. So we have the hotline. Have conversations when you're not at home or when you're not around your spouse. Those are the things that you need to really look into. The domestic violence shelters, the hotline for, domestic violence. Have those conversations. If it means going into a police station, go into a police station.
Yes.
Don't do like I did. And I went into a police station and then out of fear, I turned around and I left and I went back home. Be willing to get the help. Make a firm decision that, you know what, I want the help and I'm going to get the help. Yes. And so, we do have the National Domestic Violence Hotline. I encourage any and everyone to visit, that website, visit that hotline. Absolutely. And have the conversation, with those that are close to you.
And also, this here again, coming from a public safety standpoint, to where we go to these same locations multiple times over and over and over again. Listen to what they're saying as well. they can give you some good resources in your area. They can help you get out of those situations. If they're saying this is bad, they're seeing something that you may not see. And, pull them to the side if you have to. Talk to them when the other person's not around. They will do that. If they don't, then get a hold of somebody else to get out there, because you need the help.
Wow.
This is something that's unacceptable.
That's
You
correct.
have to make the change.
And the education needs to be on both parties.
Absolutely.
It has to be there for the one that's being abused. You got to understand, gain some knowledge, gain some education around, the finances, understand, so that way you can develop and begin to build your plan of escape. And then on the public safety side, as well, more education needs to be gained,
Oh,
from that
absolutely.
aspect as well, because I did have, and this is happening, it has happened, it continues to happen. And so we just have to be aware of this. But I had to, there was an instance where my spouse at the time and I were, coming home. We made it to the front yard, we got home, but then of course we were fighting in the car. So he's beating me up in the car. I made my way out of the vehicle. My neighbor called the police. So once the police arrived, he fled.
Yeah.
But he fled and was watching the whole situation. They couldn't find him, but he was watching, the law enforcement take me into the house to gather my belongings, so that way, I can leave. But the officer, I'll never forget, this officer told me, he said, "Ma'am, we've been here before. Why do you call us?" It's easy to just, cower down and, okay, I'm not going to call the police. I'm not going to get anyone involved. But we can't allow remarks like that to stop us.
Absolutely.
Because the education is not there.
Correct. You're absolutely right.
If you need to call the police 5 times, call the police 5 times.
Absolutely.
The point is making that phone call.
Yes.
Your life depends on it.
And I agree 100%. Absolutely. And some of the cases that I encounter in dealing with different things is I hear, well, I don't have the money. I don't have a job. There's no way for me to get out of this situation. And it, like we've talked already, it comes down to the education of that. But what other examples can we give for them to get the money to get out of that bad situation?
So again, providing that education, we have the shelters that, are available. As financial professionals, volunteering our time to provide the education. We are a resource.
Absolutely.
Let's guide you through these steps. Let's help you to get on your feet. Let's help you to find a job, prepare you for an interview, provide clothing for you so that you don't feel, I got to do this on my own. No, you don't have to do this on your own.
Exactly.
There's so many victims out there that do not realize that there's so many other people that we're here holding our hands out to you, saying, allow us to help you. Let's get you on the right track. It takes steps. You've got to have a plan. So let us help you plan your escape. Allow us to help you gain education. Allow us to help you build your resume. Allow us to help you search for a job, to get some income coming in, and it's free of charge. There's no cost. The cost to you is investing in yourself and the will to continue to live.
Oh,
we
absolutely.
Want to help you.
Yes. And I think that's the message that has to be gotten out. So many people just keep staying in there for whatever reasons is in their head. We want them to change that mindset. There is a better way.
Absolutely.
There is help out there. We are here. We're a phone call, an email, whatever we can do to help anybody better themselves. That's what we want to do.
Absolutely.
Well, we're getting close to the end of today's show. Is there anything else you would like to add? Maybe some resource information or your information that somebody would like to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So again, I love what I do. I'm very passionate about extending myself to others so they can see you can turn around. You can turn your life around. You know, I didn't think at the time I was going through it that there was going to be an out for me. You know, I was just at my wit's end. But I definitely want to share, please utilize the domestic violence shelters, utilize your law enforcement, you know, reach out, listen to your family. I know it can be challenging, but please, many people choose not to leave because they have children. I'm going to stay because of the children. Well, you know, there was a child in the household with me, and he is in his 30s now. And he said the best thing that happened is me leaving. So please recognize that by staying in an abusive environment, you are creating more harm to your children than good. Yes. They don't need to be involved and see such trauma. So reach out. So I definitely want to say that. Please reach out and allow us to help you. The domestic violence hotline. So the National Domestic Violence Hotline, that number is 800-799-7233. And I'm going to repeat that. That's 800-799-7233. Communicate with your crisis center, wherever you are, and don't stay quiet. Listen, have the conversation, start now developing a plan for escape. Because when you look back 5 years from now, then you can say, I made a difference. I made a change in my life because I am important. You are important.
Yes.
Your life is important.
Yes.
Turn that around and live, and let's collectively work together to support and uplift others that are being abused, to help them to see, even though they may not feel that they can share or voice right now. So let's be a voice for those that are afraid to be a voice right now.
Absolutely. That's just great information. I want to thank you for being on the show. You provided some great information, some great insight. There again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or her. You can get a hold of me at robbiesouth.com. That's ROBBIESOUTH.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook. Robbie South Texas How Money Works. We want you to be educated so that you can be the best you possible. Y'all have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening.
Bye. Take care of yourself.